Hi everybody, today I'm making a video with an idea that I think might help us study the Book of Mormon and understand it better. When we start the Book of Mormon, the story is pretty simple. It's about one family. We have Lehi and his son Nephi, and they leave Jerusalem and they travel, get on a ship and come to the New World, start living there, and then we have the book of Jacob, who's Nephi's brother, and then Jacob gives the records to his son Enos to keep the record, and Enos gives them to his son Jerem. It's all pretty easy to keep track of, but this week in our family, and maybe in your family, we've been reading in the book of Omni, and all of a sudden in Omni, there's a whole bunch more names are mentioned. A lot more sons and groups of people, and so we have people living in different places, and then we suddenly learn about people who live in Zarahemla, and they're called the Mulekites, and they know something about the Jaredites, who are a whole other group of people, and it gets more complicated, and as we go through the Book of Mormon, it gets even more complicated. So I think the Book of Omni is a good place to stop and say, how are we going to be able to keep all of these stories straight? We know lots of the stories in the Book of Mormon, like we know about wicked King Noah, or we know about the stripling warriors who fought for their families. But actually the Book of Mormon itself is one big story, and all the little stories are all connected together. And so I want to share with you an idea I have about how we can keep all the stories straight in our head and start to see the Book of Mormon as one big story that has lots of parts and pieces to it. So did you know that there's about 211 people named in the Book of Mormon, and about 167 different places named in the Book of Mormon? And one person has divided the Book of Mormon into 214 different events or little stories. And the time period that the Book of Mormon covers is 1,000 years. And then in the Book of Mormon, there's sections that are discourses, or where people teach about the gospel. And there's at least 28 different places where there's a major explanation about the gospel. That's a lot of stuff to keep track of, and our brains aren't very good at remembering lots of different things all at once. But we can help our brain organize everything and make it easier to remember everything. And the way we do that is we make it really, really simple at first. We just make it as simple as we can, and then as we learn things, we connect it onto the things that our brain already knows. Then our brain can remember them. So I'm going to suggest that we could organize the story of the entire Book of Mormon with just remembering 4 things. And that's because the Book of Mormon was kept by 4 families. The records that make up the Book of Mormon were kept by just 4 different families, and we could start out by memorizing those 4 families. So I'm going to tell you who they are. The first family is the family of Lehi. Hope you can see that. And we know the Book of Mormon starts out talking about Lehi, who lived in Jerusalem. The second family is the family that starts out with Mosiah. The third family is the family that starts out with Alma. And the fourth family is the family that starts out with Mormon. So we would have an outline of the whole Book of Mormon if we just remember those 4 things. Lehi, Mosiah, Alma, Mormon. Let's say it 2 more times so you can get it in your head. Lehi, Mosiah, Alma, Mormon. Lehi, Mosiah, Alma, Mormon. Those are the 4 families that kept the Book of Mormon records. Now, once our brain knows those 4 names, it's easier to add on some more information. If we hook more information to the name we already know, it'll be easier to remember. So let's start with the easiest family to remember, which is actually the 4th family. It only has 2 record keepers. Mormon, who the Book of Mormon was named after, and his son, Moroni. So the fourth family is really easy to memorize. Mormon, Moroni. That's all there is in it. The second family is pretty easy too, because it only has 3 people in it. So there's Mosiah, Benjamin, Mosiah. Can you say that? Mosiah, Benjamin, Mosiah. So now we know 2 of the families. We have them all memorized. Mormon, Moroni, Mosiah, Benjamin, Mosiah. So let's do the first family. It has a few more names in it. And that's some of those names that we've been reading about this week. But we know some of the names already. Lehi, Nephi, his brother Jacob, Jacob's son Enos. And then there's all these names. Jerem, Omni, Amram, Chemish, Abinadab, and the last one is Amaleki. But remember, if we make things simpler at first, it's easier for our brain to remember. So we're just going to get rid of some of those. And we'll just remember that right in here, there's 5 names. Oops. Let me get that. So when we memorize this family, we can just say Nephi, Lehi, Nephi, Jacob, Enos, 5 more, and then Amaleki. So say it with me. Lehi, Nephi, Jacob, Enos, 5 more, and Amaleki. Now Amaleki is the one who gave the record to Mosiah. That's how those 2 families are connected. And then this Mosiah gave the record to this Alma. So now let's look at Alma's family. Alma's family is the longest and probably has the most stories connected to it in the Book of Mormon. But it's also a very fun one to memorize, because Alma's family just goes like this. Alma, Alma, Helaman, Helaman, Nephi, 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 Amos, Amos, Amaron. Want to say it with me? Let's see if we can say it. Alma, Alma, Helaman, Helaman, Nephi, 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 Amos, Amos, Amaron. Maybe you want to say it really fast. Alma, Alma, Helaman, Helaman, Nephi, 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 Amos, Amos, Amaron. Okay, so Amaron didn't give the record to Mormon. Amaron hid the record in a hill and told Mormon to get the record when he was a little bit older. And that's how Mormon got the record. So we have this list of record player keepers that go straight through the Book of Mormon. That's easy for us to memorize. And every story and every speech and every discussion of doctrine in the Book of Mormon can be connected to one of these record keepers, how it happened and when it happened. So for example, if I thought about, do you remember the story of Ammon, who was the servant of the king, and he cut off the arms of the thieves who were trying to steal the king's flock? That story happened during this time, when the second Alma was alive. Do you remember the story of Captain Moroni? And he was fighting against the Lamanites, and the sons of Helaman, the stripling warriors, helped to win the battles. That happened during this time, this Helaman. When you remember in the Book of Mormon, Christ came to visit the Nephites. That happened during this Nephi's time. So every story that you've ever heard from the Book of Mormon can be connected to one of the record keepers to help us remember when it happened. So I'm just going to go through all of the record keepers and remind you who they are, and then we'll say all of their names again. So Lehi was at the beginning, and he was the prophet in Jerusalem who took his family out into the wilderness. Nephi was his son, who wanted to also see the vision of the tree of life, you remember. Jacob was Nephi's brother, and Jacob taught the gospel to the people when Nephi asked him to. Enos is the prophet who prayed all day and all night. You might have learned about him this week. Then if we skip down to Amaleki, Amaleki was alive when the first Mosiah was king. And Amaleki is the one who gave the records to Benjamin. King Benjamin is the one who taught from a tower. Then his son Mosiah was King Mosiah that told the people they shouldn't have a king anymore. They should have judges instead. And this Alma was alive at the same time as this Mosiah. They were probably about the same age. This Alma is the one who baptized at the waters of Mormon. And his son was friends with Mosiah's sons. And this Alma was the first chief judge. His son Helaman, he was the leader of the sons of Helaman. And this Helaman, the Gadianton robbers tried to kill him. This Nephi, can you believe how many Nephis they are? This Nephi was baptizing people at the same time that Samuel the Lamanite was preaching from the wall. And this Nephi was one of the 12 disciples when Christ came. This Nephi, the Book of Mormon, in the Book of Mormon, 4th Nephi, that book is named after this Nephi. We don't know much about Amos, they're just fun to say. And then this Amram is the one that hid up the plates and told Mormon to get them when he was old enough. And Mormon is who the Book of Mormon is named after. And Moroni is the last record keeper, that's Mormon's son. And he was the angel who brought the Book of Mormon to Joseph Smith. Made sure he got it. So I guess we might be able to say a little bit that we're kind of record keepers now because we have the Book of Mormon and we keep it and we're lucky. Let's say all of the names one more time, and then you might want to work on memorizing this so then you could say you have the whole Book of Mormon memorized in a very simple format. Here we go. Lehi, Nephi, Jacob, Enos, Amaleki, Mosiah, Benjamin, Mosiah, Alma, Helaman, Nephi, Amos, Amram, Mormon, Moroni. Okay, that's it for today. Have fun with that. Bye-bye.